Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. Are you ready? This is your host, Laura Aisha. Let's do this. Hello, Ignite Intimacy community. Here on the line with another goddess powerhouse, Christina Hepburn. What is happening in Los Angeles this morning?
Hi, I'm sitting at my balcony, basically on the floor on this like shag rug and just being comfortable and appreciating you for our breathing exercises before grounding ourselves.
You got to ground the energy.
Yes. I mean, anytime I start feeling tense, like there's some big task ahead of me or something's been asked of me, I'm like, oh, right. 3 deep breaths. It makes a big difference.
Totally. Well,
so thank you for reminding me.
Well, absolutely. And it's a reminder for me too. It's like a good excuse to just do it. And especially since I'm very weakly attempting to take on a daily meditation practice at this point. I'm really out of integrity with that. And I stood here this morning and I was like, meditation practice or go to the market, and I was like, go to the market.
I know, it's so tough. I've started getting my vitamin D, my vitamin D quota by sitting on my balcony when I'm eating. I'm like, when I eat a meal, that's about 20 minutes. Sit in the sun.
Oh gosh, we're all wheeling and dealing out here, right? It's like,
I know.
Man. So, I know that a core part of what you do is the groundation, right? So for the community, we're in for a treat today. We are talking about one of my favorite pastimes. Today, we're talking about cuddling.
Cuddling!
Woo! And, just like the world of the cuddle, I freaking love cuddling. I'm love cuddling. I love being embraced. I love cuddling others. I'm very tactical. And so this is a really exciting conversation. And Christina happens to be a professional cuddler. How cool is that? Yeah. Amazing. And so I just want to know so much more about this. But thoughts, top of your head. What's up for you in the world of professional cuddling at the moment?
Yeah, a couple things. I wanted to ask you, do you find ways to get cuddling in or touch in with friends or family? Is that kind of woven in more? And if so, I was wondering how you approach that.
That's a great question. The answer is no. I have not been effective up until this point at either being open to being cuddled by, I have a twin sister. Okay. So I was in the womb cuddling. Okay. That's how I came into the world. And so, and then in my family of origin, there was not a lot of physical touch and affection in my family growing up. And so there wasn't a lot of hugging. I don't ever remember having either of my parents look me in the eyes and tell me they loved me, or there wasn't a lot of comforting in the family of origin. And
I would guess that, I would say it's pretty standard, at least especially in our country, in America, what I know. Yeah. And even for myself, I find that I've, since becoming a professional, found ways to work it in more with my friends or to even ask for it when I know I need it. I think that's become kind of my greater strength. I think I would love to work on actually making it the norm with friends. And it's so funny how as a professional, I kind of am helping all these people and kind of creating this growth and connection out there. And then with my personal life, I'm going, I haven't woven it in, I have learned to start asking hey, something really stressful happened. Could you, hold my hand, or I need a hug, a long hug. Could you rub my head for me? My scalp is super sensitive and really healing for me. And I think so having someone stroke my hair, something I'll ask for. But another thing, the breathing that you talked about, I work on that a lot with my clients as well when they come in. So much of it is taking deep breaths together. And when you're in a lot of these cuddling poses, you can feel each other's breathing. So it's a great opportunity to take those deep breaths together. And it's always interesting to me, through breath, I can see where people are holding in their bodies, right? Where the breath isn't able to move through. And it's an indicator, I mean, when I was younger, I would hold my breath. I was like gripping. And I would say, honestly, I was holding as a self-protection from past traumas in my life. I mean, it was like, hey, I'm holding myself together by literally holding my breath.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're actually creating stagnation, right? God, I mean, you're harming yourself in a way. So it's like learning proper breath and release is going to save you in those stressful moments where the cortisol wants to spike. And it's like, hey, deep breath, I'm checking in. And that's like a self-care mechanism where you don't need your cuddle professional, but you can learn it from your cuddle professional.
Yeah.
And a lot of other modalities, but.
Totally. Well, and okay, so this is very interesting. And just, Ignite Intimacy, just, forgive me for a second, but I have a little more time than I thought I did. So we're just yeah. So Christina and I we were going to start a bit ago, and we just had some technical snafus. So we have an extension, so we can talk about cuddling and other yummy stuff for a little bit longer. So that makes me happy. And yeah, so it's so interesting because I have a twin sister, and she's amazing. She's loving, and she would love to be more cuddly with me. And I have been totally, not completely unopen to that, but certainly hesitant. And it's like the thing that shuts me down to love. And it's my own insecurities and my own fears and anxiety. And it's just so interesting that like I've got this human being in my world that's closer to me than any. I mean, it's, we were in the womb together, right? Like we came into the world together. And so I am committing to practicing being more open to cuddling and receiving love from her and sharing love with her through physical touch and, just loving each other and cuddling and just receiving that and being open to that instead of shut down to it.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, I love that you gave that example, because I think even in romantic relationships, in which, in theory, that's often the person that's closest to us, or in a case of like a sibling where you're a twin, we forget that we have this healing power and ability that we can offer each other. And I think in cases like that reminder can come in with experts like myself or other practitioners that remind us how to implement touch in a healing way other than just sexual.
Yeah.
Which is like, in a romantic relationship, it's viewed as sexual. Obviously, your sister is not a sexual relationship. And so as a result, you don't have physical contact. And so I think it's such a beautiful thing to say, hey, why don't we try even sitting shoulder to shoulder while we watch this show together? Or sitting on the same side of the table at the cafe so that you're kind of closer to each other, linking arms or just holding hands, right? These little ways of touching and supporting each other. Or checking in, like, hey, do you need a back rub? Do you want to trade? And we set a timer and do, 5 minutes each. Like, so not like, I'm committing to this back massage. How do I, tell them I'm tired after a minute? It's like, say, hey, why don't we set a timer? We each do 1 minute.
Yeah.
Do like a little back rub for a minute.
Yeah.
And it's
mini
just
massage.
Like a way to recharge. Yeah. And then something that, is sort of fun fact in the cuddling world, if you hug for longer than 20 seconds, you release oxytocin. So that's kind of this euphoria, love drug, happy drug, or I shouldn't even use the word drug, but like hormonal release where it lowers your cortisol levels. And pretty much in our present society, we have so much happening and running on so many tracks, all of us as individuals, we're pretty much on a low level cortisol release all the time, which creates inflammation in the body, which I feel like that's kind of the fun buzzword lately, which is like inflammation in the body, like take the turmeric pills. We can also use physical touch as a really organic, natural way to balance those daily stresses. So doing a hug for 20 seconds, I mean, saying even if you are in a relationship, like with your partner, I have a friend who before her husband leaves for work every morning, they do a hug for 30 seconds to a minute. And so that's actually holding and taking deep breaths together and really allowing yourself to feel the other person's body. And I think at that moment, that can kind of become the moment where you go, yeah, but I'm not going to do that with my sister. But what if you did? You know, it's like, what is it to just breathe or face each other's backs, right? And lean against the back and say, hey, let's deep breathe together for 30 seconds.
Yeah, I love that. So that makes me think of, I'm in this leadership program right now, and I'm feeling pretty like stripped down and raw. You know, it's like cracking the core of my identity wide open. And I realize that sometimes I'll be sitting there, and this is actually something that my sister and I just talked about, because we were in a restaurant I think we were in New York City, and someone was standing very close to my sister. And she's like, wow, this woman is standing really close to me. And she's like, but I kind of love when people just sort of like brush up against me, like just that feeling, like it, you know, it's like, oh, physical touch, you know? And so sitting in this leadership program last night, we do a lot of partner work. So, you know, when it's time to like turn and face your partner and share whatever the exercise is, usually I will feel the person that my back is to, I'll just feel some part of their body touching mine, because it's tight seating. There's not space between the seats. And I actually love that. Like, I love to just feel that like human touch, you know, and it's like a guilty pleasure. Like, I thought about it last night. I was like, oh my God, this feels so good. And then I was like, I wonder if it feels good to them too, because they're certainly not pulling away. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they must know as well. That's so funny. I love that you mentioned that. I actually just all these like memories came flooding back of like moments like that. And I actually love that too. And I think even as I'm talking about this, I like to share that I didn't come from a place of already being this like cuddly love bug. You know? Yeah. And I think I want to articulate that because, you know, I think the danger of like people listening to me, you know, they're going, well, I don't relate to that, or like, okay, like I can't, you know, I'm not going to touch someone in public like that, or I don't, you know what I mean? Like just going, what the heck are you talking about? How would I introduce that? It's obviously would be interpreted as weird. I guess I want to say I came from, it was a mixed bag, right? So I think I became aware of this sort of chasm, or like the split between no touch and having a lot of touch, because my mom's Colombian, and that's a very tactile, touch-friendly culture, you know, where, you know, my grandfather would like pat us on the butt walking by, you know, as a joke, or like, you know, my mom's always stroking my hair and someone's like pinching you. I mean, to the point of being annoying, where you're like, oh my God, stop touching, you know, and then my dad's side of the family was, you know, American. And I believe, you know, there would be, I don't want to say, I mean, I'm categorizing it as though well, actually there've been studies that Americans and British touch the least out of a lot of cultures. The French were actually the most, but so they, at maybe a Christmas holiday or any holiday, there'd be maybe like a pat on the back, you know, from, you know, an aunt or an uncle. And so very much like touch isn't okay. It's not normal, you know, don't invade my personal space. And seeing the two, I mean, I found that it impacted me really negatively. At a young age, I grew up with my father, and I became really uncomfortable with touch and intimacy. And I didn't have romantic relationships until I was about 20. And then even then it was a little stilted. And so I did a lot of self-development and self-growth because I didn't feel healthy, you know, it didn't feel good for me. And I just thought there has to be a better way, more than just like, I'm moving to Colombia, you know? Yeah. So like I sort of, started this quest. And then if I'm honest, you know, I moved to LA with a partner. So a relationship I was in for almost 6 years. We came to LA, and I met a lot of people out here, where I ended up going to Burning Man. I'm sure some people have heard of the festival, and people there hold hugs for a really long time. And that started it. It was like I would then come back from the festival and want to hold my friends a little longer. And I would joke and say, oh, it's the Burning Man hug, like stay in the game, like deep breath with me, and make it playful. And then through my own podcast, where I was talking about intimacy and sexuality, I had some guests on from Cuddle Sanctuary. Their names are Jean and Faye. I adore them, and they do amazing work. And I just said, I have to get in on this. I want to be able to give in the same way. So I started training, and I learned the skill sets. And now I'm 2 years in as a professional cuddler working with people. And it's just been a really powerful, beautiful experience. all the intricate ways you can actually connect and touch people. I mean, something that I think is really fun to do is that your cheekbone actually fits into the eye socket of another person. So or like that eye. So if you imagine pressing your cheekbone, so I would say this is a pretty intimate thing, right? So maybe with a romantic partner, you can, or a good friend that you feel, comfortable being silly with, but you can like press your cheekbone into the eye space of your friend or your lover and just hold it there. And it fits perfectly. And there's all these little things like that. Like there's like your knee fits in the arch of the foot. And I know that because I have a position I call the panda, where the person lays on their stomach and I lay on top of them. But like I have my knees folded. And so they put their hands straight out and my knees basically meet exactly where I just said the feet, now I'm going all over the place. So, but the hands as well, right? So their hands are down, like cradles right into the hand. So there's all these interesting matches that are calming and healing and fun and comforting. Yeah.
It's like utilizing the body as a tool. And there's something that is, for me, there's something like just so incredibly comforting when I'm with someone that I feel safe with and comfortable with, and we are holding each other in a certain way. And two specific instances come to mind. One is with a man that I met recently here in New York City. And I've been experimenting since I started. Basically, this podcast was launched out of a 6-month man pause that I took a couple of years ago. And I just was like, okay, I need to get my act together here, because I keep allowing men into my life who it's like the crumbs, right? Like I'm like taking the crumbs instead. I'm going for the crumbs instead of the 5-course meal, right? And
yeah, feeling the starvation of the relationship. Totally. It's like knowing what you want and then seeking that in your life instead of taking what comes your way.
Well, yeah. And thinking that's all that there is. And so I've been experimenting with just like really like holding off on like being too sexual too quickly and all of that stuff. And so this man and I met, and he took me home and to drop me off. Like he was definitely not coming into my house. and I asked him, I said, get out of the car, give me a proper hug, instead of like a awkward sidecar hug type thing. And
I love that.
Yeah. So he got out of the car and we embraced on the side of my street, and we literally embraced. I think it was like 30 or 40 minutes.
That's so sweet.
It was like the most incredible experience. And we just like, and we didn't kiss. Like I wouldn't let him kiss my mouth, and he wanted to. And I was like, no, I'm not ready to kiss you yet. And
just stay in the space.
Yeah. And it was so sacred and amazing.
Without escalating.
Yeah. It was like, I don't think either one of us had ever experienced something like that. And time just slipped through our fingers. I was shocked when I went inside, and I was like 140. Oh my God. Like,
wow. And I'm sure you were like floating on an oxytocin cloud.
Oh yeah.
Were you like kind of like massaging the back a little bit, like while you were holding?
Oh, totally. Other? Yeah. We were he was like, that was the most amazing, like, makeout session without kissing that I've ever had. Like, it was like, well,
and I love that story. That's exactly, the kinds of things I discovered by doing this cuddle practice is the capacity for touch and the way that we can receive in so many different ways and so many different types of intentions with the touch. And it's just this, what do I want to say? It's just a vast like iceberg of experience that is beyond activating what I would call the sexual chakras, right? Like, I love to say like, okay, well, if we talk about the chakra map, right, you actually have 7 chakras and the sexual chakra is only 1, right? So we are mostly operating from that place, like, oh, I'm looking for a sexual partner, or I'm dating and I'm finding someone to be sexual with. And it's like, well, what about all these other ones? Like, how do you kind of awaken those and maintain that? And that developing the relationship and allow sexuality to be, in that mix when you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, absolutely. And being in choice about that and not just because, I'm just really proud of myself because I'm getting so good at being like, no, I'm not ready for that yet. Like, whatever it is, I'm not ready to touch your penis yet. I'm not ready to whatever,
Yeah. Ooh, you hit on something so key. So in the cuddle practice, something that people also aren't necessarily aware of, and maybe a big component of it, is in fact exercising boundaries and consent. And what that means is, people will say, well, I don't know if I want to be touched, and like what, I'm going to go into this space and someone's going to fondle, like how do I feel safe in my body, right? It kind of like, how am I going to protect myself if I don't want to be touched or don't like something? And in fact, before anyone starts, there are cuddle groups and they implement all of this. And even on my one-on-one sessions, we sit down and have a conversation first, and we talk about asking for what you want. That's a prominent thing, which is like, what's on your mind, right? So often we know what we want and it's inside of our heads, and we've either suppressed it or pushed it aside or told ourselves like, we can't have that and it's not okay to ask, right? But in fact, if you start voicing it, then you give the other person a chance to answer, right? Yeah. Instead of deciding in your head, are they okay with this or not, right? And I would see little moments where I'm like insecure to say, what kind of the massage thing, like I was saying, well, I don't want to burden them. I'm going to ask them for that. And what if they don't want to? Yeah. Well, you just ask, right? And then the other person can say no, right? So it's also, so we practice, we do a role-playing game where we practice saying no. And the exercise is, I'm going to ask you for something and you're going to say no. And then you're going to ask me for something and I'm going to say no, but I'm going to negotiate for something else. Like, no, I don't really want to do that, but would you be open to doing this instead?
I love that.
Yeah, really teaching communication skills and comfort around just what you said, which is saying no. I'm entitled to say no. I'm not in the mood. And then also practicing accepting no's graciously, which is like, thank you for taking care of yourself. Because it's not about me. It's not, so as a man, right, you're in this dynamic, you're outside with him, you're embracing, and he's going, wow, it's going really well. It's my job to escalate it. I think lots of men have been taught that. I would even say that in a lot of my romantic relationships, I still kind of expect that myself, like just from, I don't know, is that training or whatever, but there is that element, but it's like feeling confident and practiced in saying, no, I'm not ready for that. And that person knowing like, okay, I didn't fail as a man. I didn't fail at my game, right? I didn't fail at like turning her on. It's just, she's not ready. And I appreciate that she's using her words so that I know where she is.
Yeah.
So I know where to meet her at what level.
Well, yeah. And then also just for me in my own mind, I'm thinking about an experience that I had recently with this man who like generally was really trying to rush things on the sexual tip. And I expressed that didn't work for me. And then, it was just like very, very clear with my boundaries with this person. And also just like that, even if something doesn't feel totally in flow the first time that you are intimate with somebody, just being open to exploring it again if it feels like there's space for that. Because sometimes the first time is just weird.
I'm nervous. Like, whatever story they have in their head. And I'm in a place now, and especially from doing cuddle practicing, which has upped my ability to be honest and feel safe expressing myself with my honesty, which is like, hey, can we pause? Like something does feel a little off. I'm sensing that maybe you're actually uncomfortable. Like, is there something I could do to make you more comfortable? Or like just opening up that dialogue. And I think from the more cuddle practicing I do, the more intuitive I become in understanding how someone's feeling, I should say, because I don't know what they're feeling. I don't know exactly what they're thinking, but I can sense resistance, right? Or I can sense openness, or, like people are actually communicating on this like cellular level in their bodies all the time. And the more we practice it, the more we understand these cues, the more we slow down to allow for that kind of touch, the more we can feel where that boundary line is.
Yeah. Instead of racing for some finish line somewhere that doesn't even exist,
Yeah. Well, this brings up the issue of, where I think this cuddling has become so valuable for me, whether it's with friends or hiring a professional to work with you, it's that once you are filling up your tank, if it's sort of like a gas tank, you stop at a gas station with your car, it's like you can get enough touch. You can hit this like, your speedometer can be like, hey, I'm totally
yeah.
What do you call the meter that does gas? The gas meter is full, and you're like, I don't need it anymore. Like my tank is full. But if you're coming from starvation, and mostly, especially men in our culture too, it's like the only way that they get touch is through sexuality. So they're like, okay, I met this woman, I'm really excited about her. I had a client who actually came to me and said, I was dating someone and I was really sad that it didn't work out. We had been on a couple dates and then it fell apart. She was still adjusting out of a past relationship. And he said, more than the sex, I was really disappointed that we didn't get to have any intimacy or touch. And he was like, I was, feeling that deficit. And it was like, we use sex to get our touch needs met. So what if we get our touch needs met? Does that allow us to show up more fully with this person that I'm on a date with, to really say honestly, like, am I excited about you? Do we align in a lot of ways? How involved do I want to get with you? Because I'm not thinking about how I need that touch and sexuality met.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in a touch-starved culture, we're going into these experiences, many of us, I'll just speak for myself, where I certainly have develop newer boundaries around it. And I also like, oh my God, when I feel like a touch that really feels yummy and good and nourishing to me, man, I just like want more of it,
Yes. Ooh, well said. Well said. And that actually, I want to share, I also was going to say, I've been dating someone where, just the other day I had been going through a number of stressful events and I felt pretty exhausted. I would say my adrenal glands are drained, cortisol shot, this kind of thing that we're trying to avoid. But there I was, exhausted, and we're supposed to get together. And I said, hey, I just want to check in and say I'm really excited to see you, and I'm also not feeling very sexual, and so I just don't want you to have that expectation and feel disappointed when I'm going to see you. And he's like, oh, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate understanding where you are, and so that he can kind of set that expectation for himself as well. And I also said, part of that is me talking back at that idea of asking for what you want, and also communicating honestly and setting those boundaries for yourself. And then I also said, right now doesn't mean that I won't be. I might change my mind. And I also just want to say that let's set the bar low for this expectation, and I may change my mind, right? And indeed, kind of what we're talking about, there was really lovely, nourishing touch. It was I didn't feel that anxiety or pressure that was his expectation. We were able to connect organically, and then it evolved and it did become sexual.
Nice. Well,
and so I share that because sorry to add quickly, it's that. Oh no, I lost the idea. Please do interrupt me.
Yeah. Well, so it's communication creates space. Right. So when you're not sitting with that, oh God, I hope he doesn't, no, if he does, what am I going to do? Instead, just presencing it, speaking to it, you know what, I just super excited to see you. And I just want you to know that I'm actually feeling quite exhausted. So if we can just do something mellow, or I'm not really feeling that sexual. Or I'm not feeling sexual. I just want to, manage any expectations you might have there. It's that then creates space for what is actually authentically there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I wanted to tie it to one of the kind of the principles of consent and comfort, and just this idea of, right, when you're communicating what your boundaries are at that moment, and you feel heard and listened to, and you're met in that way, then you're able to unfold. Something that comes up in sessions is also in group cuddles situations, which I know in New York they have them, San Francisco, LA, there's definitely group cuddle events happening. And sometimes even in different towns and stuff, they, people who've decided to start hosting them in their own homes. So I encourage people to get online and research that if they're curious. But something that I think is really key is we always say, no right now doesn't mean no later. And I think this is like a principle in life, which it's so funny. I was just talking with my mom and she's in this relationship and she's kind of not, certain needs aren't being met. And she's like, well, I indirectly, like I did say it. I said it indirectly. And I said, well, why don't you try directly next time, Mom?
That might actually work.
Yeah. I said, well, you try direct. But also I said, because she had a story in her head that, she had been rejected in this way in the past. And I said, well, why don't you try asking again now? Because that was a while ago and things could have changed.
Yeah.
And we often tell ourselves, I was rejected by this person. That's uniform. That's universal. But if we take the time to say, hey, I feel that I was rejected in the past and I want to ask you again about this, the person might say, I don't remember that, or I didn't understand that that's what you were asking, or yeah, I did because I was really exhausted and overwhelmed with work and I couldn't meet that need. But right now I would love to do that while we're on vacation in Hawaii, whatever it is, but I did it myself in my past relationships where I would shut down because I received that initial no.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and also just that a complaint that I've had in the past is like that wanting to be able to cuddle with a partner without it having to lead to sex,
Yeah.
So having the freedom to just be close to someone and cuddle with them and we're addressing that, right? Like with communication and being able to just say like, listen, I'm not feeling sexual tonight. I'd really love to just cuddle with you on the couch and watch a movie and go to bed,
Yeah. Well, and this brings up, for me, like, I love that idea of like, hey, can we just cuddle on the couch? But what immediately comes up for me and kind of on this higher level of like doing professional cuddling, like what makes it professional, is all the ways that you could actually support each other through touch in that moment. Right. So rather than just sitting side by side, it's like, hey, do you want to sit on the floor while I'm on the sofa and I could like lightly caress your face and maybe massage your ears? And then, you can do the same for me or right. Like get really specific. Like, how do you want to be touched?
Yes.
And it's like, and when you actually sit and like, if someone asks you that, or you ask someone else and you sit and wait and you say, how do you want to be touched? Or you offer a few suggestions, could I caress your scalp? Or do you like to have like a more firm, a rub up and down your spine? Or do you need like your shoulders needed? Like what sounds really delicious and ideal right now? I love having my ears caressed, right? So I'm like, lightly circling around them. And then I have this new kind of detailed thing that I learned from actually I guess I call him a body healer, but he does a lot of like fascia. Yeah, fascia
Tell us
work
your secrets.
and like alignment. Yeah. So what I learned from him is actually putting I usually use my index finger, or my thumb even inside of your ear, like the actual, the inner canal kind of, not going deep to hurt the person, but pressing right inside of that spot and picking a spot kind of in the lower, like on the bottom part of it and just holding. And then kind of moving upwards and holding and like pressing in these little spots really gently, but just holding that spot. And I think we often think of touch like I need to massage you or I need to apply pressure, from like the way that we've experienced massages often. In fact, often just a light press in a specific spot. Mm-hmm. And if you hold for, again, this is a little bit longer, 30 seconds, the muscle naturally releases because the energy moves there. There's blood flow there from the hand touching in that spot.
I love that.
So it's much lighter than necessarily like, I got to apply pressure if I'm going to touch you, right? And which can be very tiring for the giver.
Well, absolutely. Well, and so we're going to include the link to your article in the show notes. However, you wrote an article, looks like southwritlarge.com. Yeah. Love a case for intentional touch from a professional cuddler. And you talk about how one of your clients asked if he could massage you or touch you in your armpit area, like under your arms.
Yeah.
And how that opened up something that now you actually use in your practice, and just speaking to the parts of our bodies that rarely, if ever, get touched.
Right. I love doing that. And my clients often giggle and they're like, okay. because I say, hey, can I knead your armpits? I want to massage your armpits, and they're like, and the thing is when you go in there in a firm touch or kind of even create a fist with your hand and like kind of knead in there, it's not ticklish the way that, you go, oh my God, don't tickle my armpit.
Yeah.
And I always say it's, in fact, you have a lot of glands there like that help your lymphatic system, which is, releasing toxins from your body, obviously BO that we're all trying to cover up, that's the center for cleansing your body. So I like to really massage those glands and get in there. And it's also this deep cavity, actually, the armpit, where you kind of have this backside access to your, shoulder blade spot. And you're able to just kind of press in there and find some interesting things. And then also the rib cage, you press in the other side and you feel the ribs. And again, it's not about applying a ton of pressure, but just some pressure and awakening the senses in that spot, awakening the nerve endings in that space. There's tissue and tendons and all these things that get stimulated that haven't been touched since you were probably 10 years old, when someone violently tickled you.
Oh my God. Well, and so, and it just like gets things moving, right, in our bodies. And
totally.
And there's a lot of possibility and potential that can come from that. So Christina, just so the Ignite Intimacy audience knows who, gets the fullness of who we're talking to, I actually just want to read your bio here, because I think it's important to share everything that you're up to. And then I'm so curious about what it takes to become a professional cuddler. So, okay. So Christina Hepburn is a professional cuddler, as we have mentioned, and intentional touch expert. Cuddling is platonic, physical touch therapy that allows Christina to work with clients around intimacy and comfort in their bodies. So we'll share all of Christina's links at the end of the show. They'll be in the show notes. Christina is also successful podcast producer and host. So Christina co-hosts the T&A Talk Sex podcast on BlogTalkRadio. It's been around for 3 years. It's just an incredibly well done podcast that I suggest you all check out. Sexuality, relationships, intimacy, a lot of similar things that we're talking about here, and just in, her own format with a co-host. So it's really amazing. Definitely recommend you check that out. And when she was in school at Columbia University here in New York City, Christina was the first undergrad to direct a graduate school production of the Vagina Monologues. So looks like standing ovation from a 1,000-seat audience. Also an actress and stand-up comic and co-creator of the web series Autocorrect Fuck You, ACFU. Christina is based in Los Angeles and travels to see her clients as well. So talk to us about what it takes to become a professional cuddler.
Yeah. And I also want to talk a little bit about women's health, but we'll get to that. To become a professional cuddler, as I mentioned, I was doing my podcast and I'm always was looking for interesting topics and people. And I saw a video about a man in Manhattan doing professional cuddling. I said, that'd be a great topic. I look it up and I found Jean, who we had on our show in the past for a different reason. And I said, oh my God, I said, what are you doing now? She said, well, I'm running this cuddle business. And I'm actually hosted on a site called Cuddlist.com. Yeah. But yeah, so she came on and was so eloquent about the types of people that want to come do this practice, right? A lot of people go, well, who does that? And they kind of go to these extremes, right? And in fact, some people are like yourself, where you're like, I know that I love touch and I kind of want to just get more of it in my life because I have a stressful job. I have someone who's a lawyer who's like, oh, I want to come to that. I have someone who's, a school principal and has a high stress job, but is like incredibly thoughtful and loves touch. I also have people who are dealing with PTSD, from being a war veteran, maybe even sexual traumas, really any kind of, trauma. I mean, I had one client who was a physicist who had, when he really opened up, talked about some of the traumas from his childhood and kind of, divorced parents and not getting that kind of attention, which we all kind of have little pockets of that in some way. Mm-hmm. So, I share that to say that there's, a myriad of people. I mean, some are dealing with anxieties around touch, or really have anxiety around intimacy in more highly sensitive cases where the goal is to just get better at even being in close proximity with someone, right? Yeah. So move at the level of comfort that, my client arrives at. So anyway, so I share all that. Sorry, I kind of digressed a little. How do we get into it? So I had Jean and Faye on, and I was talking about it, and I said, well, God, I really have this desire to be able to give in that way. And I had kind of accumulated different knowledge around touch from my acting background, doing workshops that involve, learning your body better and massage and all these things. So I did a training course with Cuddlist.com. Cuddlist and Cuddle Sanctuary both have trainings. I think they're both excellent, and I think you gain different things from both. I believe their Cuddlist is online, and you can do that online, and then you meet with a practitioner in your area. And I always encourage people to really get involved with the community as much as you can. We have an online, community group where we share stories and connect and can ask each other questions and really create support. And as well as, I'm in LA, I'm in a hub where there are a lot of people doing it. I can go to a group cuddle on Wednesdays when I feel a little drained, and I need a recharge.
Yeah.
So, but if you're in a place that's a little more isolated, there is this online community. And sometimes you can find, people in your area, or even recruit a friend, so that you guys are doing this job together.
Yeah.
Because it is still very much on the fringe, or kind of this new frontier where people kind of go, wait, so, is that code for sex work? And you're like, no, it's not. Mm-hmm. And also I have some liberal views around that anyway, but in terms of, I'm not judging that kind of work, but it is different. And it's the act of actually awakening your body outside of that kind of sexual context.
Yeah.
So it's like everything around it. It's the spectrum beyond it. So that is how you would do it. If you wanted to get involved yourself, I would start with going to the Cuddlist website, and I would also encourage getting involved and practicing going to events and really expanding your own vocabulary so that you can give more to your clients more fully, as thoughtful guide.
Yeah. Well, and so what do you do when you, like, this is one of my concerns, or would be one of my concerns, I think. Like, what do you do when you meet with someone and then I'm like, okay, like, where are you meeting them? Are they coming do you have a space? Are you going to their home? Like, what does that look like? And then what if you meet with someone and it's just like, oh my God, like their scent repulses you, or they're like clearly not maybe clean, or like their hygiene. That's what comes up for me. Like speaking it, I'm like, even I feel like embarrassed to even speak it. It sounds so superficial, but like really, like that would be some of my concerns.
Yeah. I would say these are the common fears. Thank you for hitting on them. I would say I have a space that I host sessions that I think has a very relaxing, kind of more meditative, serene energy. I do aromatherapy as well, with, peppermint or lavender scents, this kind of thing, to create an environment. I play healing energy music and sounds. And so it's a safe space to meet in, right? And in the same way that one would get a massage and kind of expect, a spa energy. So I have that. And also there are some clients who maybe aren't able to travel, or perhaps their schedule is constraining. And so, they'll say, can you meet me at my place? Could you come to me? Or I'm traveling for business. Could you meet me at my hotel? And I think in those moments you kind of go, and in that sense, that's where screening's important. There is a conversation that occurs. There's, information transfer. It's like, why are you, looking for this? We're also trained to address the concerns around, like, what is your intention in seeking this? But anyway, but that's a little bit different. But that idea of, does this person have hygiene? I mean, that I think comes down to, like, if you have, I expect the person to be showered and, I did have, I had a client once that was like, hey, I'm riding my bike to you. And, is there any way I could shower at the place we're meeting? And I said, absolutely. I was like, great, no problem. You can, have your time in the bathroom and have some privacy.
That's great.
So I think there's just, there's an introductory email where I kind of, I have a list of kind of bulleted important key points, and that can be one of them, right? So if you're a practitioner and you know that you have a sensitivity to certain scents, even colognes or perfumes, you can say, like, please don't, please arrive not wearing that. Please, be conscientious of showering beforehand. Like all these things, that, what I love about this statement or this conversation is it's basically, again, it comes back to asking for what you want. and knowing what your boundaries are. And like, hey, I really need these things to be met for me to be a hell yes to doing this practice with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Well, that's amazing. I love that you are in the world and loving people up and giving the cuddles and receiving the cuddles, and, you know, that you're part of this movement that is a part of intentional
bringing
touch.
More intimacy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like intentional touch.
Intentional touch. Thank you.
So
are we running low on time? Because I want to just touch on like women's health a little bit.
Yeah. So let's talk like 2 minutes on women's health and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because something that came up for me, first of all, I want to just say that I think a lot of the times people go, oh, but a lot of men come to your service, right? I do have more male clients than female clients. I think it's tied more to men feeling comfortable and entitled to seek these kinds of services. I think women tell themselves a lot like, oh, I should get that in a relationship, right? I think these come down to archetypes of, where we think we're allowed to have touch and touch is only for sexual and all these things.
Yeah, or so like women feeling funny about going to another woman for that type of a service maybe?
Yeah, right. A lot of fear around judgments of that, or just their own judgments of like what that means. And in fact, I would say, I would again kind of link it to like the same ballpark of massage, like this idea of you're going to a kind of a healing meditation, breath work, and light massage kind of experience, right? So man or woman, this is, I'm a facilitator holding that space for you. And I do have female clients who have benefited from it. And in fact, I was just reading about cortisol and stress levels from this really lovely blog. A woman named Kate Shaw writes it. And she was talking about menstrual cycles for women and healthy hormonal balances throughout the month, and like how much that influences how empowered we're feeling and energetic to accomplish our goals and dreams and be our fullest selves. And we're really struggling with that right now with like the different toxins in our environment and plastics affecting our progesterone levels. And so she cited a number of things that help, right? And it was, of course, there's diet, there's certain foods, and also touch, being something that can be a very soothing agent. And I recently just had this powerful experience where I was having a rough month of cramps. And I was on vacation in Joshua Tree with my two friends. And I'm in the bathroom, moaning. And my friend's going, oh my God, is there anything I can do? Do you want more pills? Like, how do I help? And I felt really shy about asking. But I wanted to say, can you massage my head, or can you hold me? And I avoided it. I didn't ask right away. I was like waiting. And then she kind of blurted out, like, can I like massage you? Like, well, how do I help? And I was like, yes. I said, yes, please do that. And so we sat on the bed and I rested my head in her lap and she stroked my hair, and I asked more specifically, can you, rub my face and all this stuff. And then I just started kind of talking, and I was like sharing what was on my mind. And then I remembered, kind of random things were coming up. I started talking about this film that, made me cry, and I was crying about how tender it was about human connection. And then she massaged my back, and all the pain dissipated. I had no more pain. And we went for a hike all day on the first day of my cycle.
That's amazing.
And I wanted to really get this in to this conversation with you, because I think the power for women to heal other women, and even our male partners to heal us in those times of our cycle with intentional touch, right? So this is a great example of healing without sexuality, where I know a lot of the times actually also women can enjoy sex with their period, but when you're having that kind of pain, to have hands rested on that uterine area, holding that, just creating that warmth, putting your hands on the sacrum in the back, the lower back, just holding, running the fingers up that spine and like massaging the head to kind of move the pain away, move your sensory experience of pain away from the uterine area, right? All of these things create soothing, calming release. And I think even I mentioned the talking because the emotional release through talking allowed for my body to relax as well. And the cycle, and I'll put a button on it, but the cycle is actually a very cathartic time where there's an opportunity for introspective awareness in women, a lot of the echoes in your mind that come up are things that are maybe unresolved or things that you can resolve in that time. But the period is this, your period, your menstrual cycle is this opportunity for, releasing, because you are shedding literally, right? But you're shedding from that month, from all the things that have happened. And I actually talked with a holistic doctor who a blend of kind of Western medicine as well, and talks about how the last 3 months reflect how you're experiencing your cycle and what kind of self-care you've done, how much stress your body's been under. That cycle is representing the past 3 months roughly.
Interesting.
So I just wanted to make sure I plugged all that info, because I think there's a real opportunity for women to have positive menstrual experiences.
Yes.
With more touch.
Yes. Well, yeah. And supporting each other through it, like they used to do in the hundreds and thousands of years ago, like the red tent days and and also something else that we didn't touch on that I loved from your article that I'll just mention quickly here is the whole thing about like having that like ravenous desire for like physical touch or sex or like, and when we're not getting enough loving, intentional touch in our lives, I know for me, like I can totally have that. Like I'll be like on the bloody warpath, like I'm like, who, where, how can I get this need met, and it comes
hunting
out,
for touch under the guise of sex.
And it's
I'm at the bar. Who is appealing?
Like who am I picking up a vibe from? And although these days that's not my normal flow, I certainly go through that, and I'm having some of that experience right now where I just notice that I'm in my life like, okay, who is it? Who's going to be the next like person that I can get that need met from? And I'm just bringing presence to it. And there's so much more to talk about, Christina. I just want our audience. I know. I'm like, if only next episode. Yeah. Okay. Next episode. So tell us, how can we find you online? Where can we find you?
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I'm, as a practitioner in cuddling, I'm on cuddlist.com/Christina, Christina. But cuddlist.com is a great resource for all this kind of information. And of course, every cuddler is a little bit different. So this is my particular approach to it. And then my podcast is T&A Talk Sex, like tits and ass, nice. But it's sort of tongue in cheek. But so TA Talk Sex on social media and tatalksex.com. It's on iTunes and all podcast apps. That's a way to find me. And then social media, like Instagram, is at Cri Hepburn. I do CHRI Hepburn. So yeah, if anyone has any questions or wants to learn more, please do reach out. I'm accessible on all those platforms.
Amazing.
Thank you for asking.
Yes, absolutely. So Ignite Intimacy audience, check out Christina, cuddlist.com. It's cuddlist.com/Christina, CHRISTINA. Check her out. We'll have links in the show notes. Also, tatalksex.com or the T&A Talk Sex podcast on iTunes and everywhere else where you might listen to podcasts. So, Christina, what a great pleasure. So happy to have you. Would love to do this again. And Ignite Intimacy, you heard it here. We're talking about cuddling. Get your cuddle on and holler at us. Let us know what you got from this episode. Hop over to iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and you can always email us, hello@igniteintimacy.com. So stay blessed and ciao for now.
Thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out at igniteintimacy.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It helps more people know about us. We love to hear from you. You can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions to hello@igniteintimacy.com. And tell your friends. Music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey, and this podcast is produced by yours truly, Laura Aisha. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.